Namaste, hello, once again welcome to NCERT's live phone-in program. My name is Tanvi Khurana and all the class 1 students, this class is for you. In this English session, I'm so sorry, all the class 2 students, this session is for you. You're watching us on VmVideocon Channel number 2, and in this session we are going to talk about a lesson. The lesson titled The Wind and the Sun. Well, what is in store in this chapter? Well, we'll get to know about it from our expert. If you have read this chapter, you liked it, there's something you didn't like, and there's anything particular you have a doubt about, then please come on, ask us. You can always mail your questions on our email ID, which is ciet.kishoremanch@gmail.com, and our YouTube channel is NCERT Official. In the live chat box of our channel, you can write your questions and send it to us. As simple as that. So let's meet our expert who will be discussing this, the wind and the sun, this lesson. So she is Miss Kalpana Manwal. Welcome, ma'am.
Good day, everyone.
Ma'am is a former DL.Ed teacher from Jain Bharati Institute of Higher Education, Delhi. Like I said, you can always send your questions. We are here discussing this chapter. Let's begin with the summary of this session, of this lesson called The Wind and the Sun. Ma'am, what exactly is this title, this lesson all about?
So, like the title says, the wind and the sun, we know that there has to be characters named the wind and the sun. The wind and the sun are the main characters of this lesson, and one day they got into an argument about who of the two was more powerful.
Okay.
So, what did they do? They used all their might on a man who was walking down the road, and they tried to make him take off his coat. Now, how did they try to do so? So, first of all, the wind started blowing very hard, and because of the wind, the man started feeling very cold, and he kept pulling his coat. Finally, when the wind realized that it was of no use, that his efforts were of no use, it decided to let go, and now our next character, the sun, comes on the screen, and what did he do? He made the day hotter and hotter and hotter, and because of that, what happened? The man started sweating, and finally he decided to take off his coat. So, who do you think was the winner of this battle, of this competition?
Could be any one of those two.
But the battle was about who could make the man take off his coat.
Right.
Right.
So let's get there in a while, and let's not reveal who won the battle.
Yeah.
Maybe we can talk about the language of this particular lesson.
Yeah. So one of the interesting things about this lesson is that this is the first play in NCERT's Marigold series.
Okay.
So both in class 1 and class 2, this is the first time that lesson is given in the form of a play. So, what is special about a play? What makes a play different from a story? When we say that the lesson is in the form of a play, it means that there are some characters, they have some specific dialogues and lessons allotted to them. That we can see in this chapter, that there are two characters, the sun and the wind, and both of them have some dialogues and they have some actions as we read the lesson. So, the story is presented in form of a play, and how teachers and parents can use this play is encourage their students to repeat the dialogues of different characters. In this way, the students can enhance their speaking as well as their reading skills.
Okay. What else can students learn from this particular lesson?
Okay, so from this lesson we can see that tense is an important aspect. Like we said, this is the first time that a lesson is presented in the form of a play. So what's about a play that makes it different? What we can see is that there is much focus on the use of present tense and that too of the use of the present continuous tense to describe the actions of the characters.
Okay.
Right. Let's see some examples.
Sure.
So as the dialogues come, what the man is doing, he's pulling his coat more tightly. So here pulling is an ing word, is a verb which is carrying ing marker with it. Again we have some more dialogues which have shining harder. Here also we see the use of ing. When we compare it to other lessons like Haldi, we have another lesson, that is Haldi's Adventure. There we see that the dialogues are given, there is no use of present continuous tense while describing the action.
Okay.
Right. He smiled and said, she met a giraffe. Haldi looked up at him. There is no use of continuous tense here, but when we go back, we see that all the actions are given in continuous tense.
Right.
Right. So this is an important aspect, and that's also highlighted in the book. When we go further, there is an exercise that we can see that is about in which the lesson is given in the form of a story, like a proper story and not in the form of a play. And there we can see that we have many blanks and we have to pick the right word and fill in the blank.
Okay.
Right. Here the focus is on the past tense. Teachers and parents can encourage their students to look at the factor that is common there, like the presence of ed at the end. Right. In that way, if we are not directly teaching tense to children, we are introducing them about something about it, something about verbs, how these verbs are different from the others.
Okay.
And one more thing, we can also use the past form in the form of a verse, right? You can present this lesson in the form of a poem as well, and there we can give them many options. Like here it is given on the screen, once the sun and the wind blank into a fight.
Can we try and solve this for the students?
Sure. So we have three options, got, not and pot, and all of them rhyme. So what would be the right option for this blank?
But we need to use the past form, and in these three options, got is the only past form.
Absolutely correct. Got is the only option that fits in this blank. So we can say once the sun and the wind got into a fight, and our sentence makes sense after adding this word. Next, we have both blank to prove their might. Cried, fried, tried.
Both tried to prove their might.
Correct again. Both tried to prove their might. Here again we have a verb with ed ending.
True.
Right. They blank a man down the road.
They saw a man down the road.
We have three options, saw, draw and paw, and we picked saw from here because that's the most suitable one.
Right.
And dash a bet on who could make him take off his coat.
And made a bet on who could make him take off his coat.
Yeah, so you're absolutely right. And in this way, we can encourage students to interact with tense forms in a more interesting manner.
Okay, so that's how they can learn the past form.
Yeah, if we want to introduce them to past forms, in some of these ways, we can introduce them to these aspects.
Okay.
So, apart from doing the past forms, we also have ing forms, right?
Right.
And what do these forms convey? Ing words are meant to convey that about an ongoing action. With a play, it's very common that the actions are being done in front of an audience, and that's why they are given in present continuous tense.
True.
That is very important to tell children that that thing is different from the content that is presented in the form of a story. When we are saying the sun is smiling or the wind started puffing his cheeks and started blowing harder, there we need to focus that the actions were taking place in front of an audience. Actions are meant for an audience, that's why ing words are used there. When we do so, we are able to attract attention of students to these aspects of the language, which is very important, because instead of teaching them about rules and factors related to tenses, in this way we can grab their attention more easily.
Okay. What else is there for our students, ma'am?
Okay, so as we know that the lesson is about the wind and the sun,
Right.
so they're a part of the weather and seasons and how weather is related to season, but we can't introduce them to the scientific aspects at this stage.
Okay.
So what we can do is we can tell them about the elements of weather or what common weather phenomena are present there. Like we know about fog, we know about dust storms, we also know about rain, and we also know about clouds and winds, and wind was also present there in our lesson.
Right.
So it's an interesting EVS task that students can do. So we have some common weather phenomena. We have rain, we have cloud, we have snow, and we have wind. So instead, there is this sudden transition from sunny to windy and then back to the sunny weather in our lesson as well.
Right.
So what teachers and educators can do, they can ask their students to make a guess about seasons in which the weather is quite windy and the seasons and the season in which the weather is quite hot. We can make a guess about the months in which such weather is common, or we can make a common guess about the seasons if we want to. And another interesting thing about one of the common weather phenomena, that is rain, we have is in our class, in our supplementary book for class 2, that is Raindrops, there is a poem called Rain in Summer. It's a very beautiful poem, and I hope our learners will enjoy this poem with us. So, shall we?
Yes, please.
How beautiful is the rain after the dust and heat, in the broad and fiery street, in the narrow lane. How beautiful is the rain. How it clatters along the roofs like the tramp of hoofs. How it gushes and struggles out from the throat of the overflowing spout. Across the window pane it pours, and swift and wide with a muddy tide. Like a river down the gutter roars the rain, the welcome rain. So, how did you like the poem?
It's lovely. Ma'am, is it written by
It's written by H.W. Longfellow.
Okay.
Okay, and the interesting thing about this poem is that it focuses on the movement of rain. It describes the rain in such a beautiful manner that even those people who don't like rain, they are going to fall in love with the rain.
Absolutely. I think little kids, they all love to get drenched in
Yeah.
rain.
But it's not always safe, so take care of yourself as well. But with this poem, there is a lovely, there are some questions that follow this poem, like what do you like about rain, what do you not like about rain. What our learners are encouraged to write or discuss about their thoughts and opinions on rain. But there is another interesting activity that we have here, and that is collecting a poem on rain in your mother tongue. Now, what we can do is we can connect this activity with our lesson, the wind and the sun, and make it more interesting by talking about other weather phenomena we discussed, like wind, rain, wind, cloud, snow, wind, and tell students to collect different poems, folk songs as well as folk tales on these weather phenomena and even on seasons if they can find, and they can submit that to their class teachers, and the teacher can compile and make a collection of the submissions made by the students and then later share it with the class.
I think that's a wonderful idea.
Yeah.
In this way, they can even brush up their own regional language skills. And well, we'll even get to know which is their favorite weather.
Yeah, absolutely. And even if they don't like any weather, it doesn't mean they won't find any story or poem.
Absolutely. They can even choose whether they like summers or winters.
Yeah, you have many choices. Just pick one, talk to your elders, talk to your friends, and discuss with their teachers and make this lesson more interesting and more fun.
Absolutely. Okay, let's go further and get to know what else our expert is going to explain it to us here.
So, as we know that at the end of the lesson it is written that it is adapted from Aesop's fables. So, first of all we want to know, what do we mean by the term fables?
Okay.
Right, what are fables? After reading the lesson, after listening to the story, we are quite aware that it is some kind of story, but what sort of a story a fable is? So, as you can see on your screen, a fable is a short story with a moral. Main characters are non-human and characters show human-like behavior and emotions. Now, what makes this story a fable? What makes the story, the wind and the sun, of fables? So, who are our main characters here?
Wind and the sun.
Absolutely right. And do you think the man that was a part of the story, on whom they showed all their might, was he also main character of the story according to you?
No, he wasn't.
Yeah, so we can't say that he was the main character. So we have two main characters, the wind, the sun. And it's a short story, it has an ending, as well as they show emotions and actions that are usually shown by people, like smiling, puffing his cheeks.
Right.
Usually we don't see the sun and the wind smiling or puffing their cheeks. It would be quite uncommon if we come across that sign.
But like you said, a fable has a character that every short story comes under the tag fable. It has a moral in it.
Yeah.
So what is the moral of this particular story?
Yeah. So when we talk about moral, it's important that we don't try to teach students that there is a moral at the end of the story, right?
Okay.
We try to avoid that at this stage. We just want them to enjoy the story. And why we do so, we'll discuss it a little later. But
Sure.
let's talk about Aesop's fables at first.
Okay.
So what are Aesop's fables? Like we have already discussed what fables are. So Aesop's fables are a collection of fables by a Greek man whose name was Aesop. That's why we got the name Aesop's fables. And we have some very popular fables from this collection, right? And I'm sure many of you must have heard them. The Hare and the Tortoise, the Crow and the Pitcher, Belling the Cat are some of the popular fables that we have from this collection, and they are very popular, very common. If you haven't heard of them as of now, I encourage you to ask your teacher about these stories and make your classes more interesting, more fun, more wonderful.
Okay. I'm sure they're going to listen to you and they'll go further and check all these stories if they haven't checked so far.
Yes, so apart from the Aesop's fables, so like I said, Aesop's fables are from Greece, right? Their origin is said to be from Greece. So, but we Indians also have our own collection of fables,
Okay.
and they are mostly beastly fables, and that means their animals are the main characters there, right? And I'm sure many of you must have listened or read some of these fables at least. So this collection is known as the Panchtantra, very famous, very popular. I
Absolutely.
don't think there are people who haven't heard stories from Panchtantra in one form or the other.
Right.
So this collection of fables, as I told you, it consists of animal fables, or we can say beastly fables. The language is Sanskrit, and we have some popular stories from the Panchtantra, like the blue jackal, the monkey and the crocodile, the cave that talked, the lion and the hare.
And many more.
Yeah, and many more. These are just a few. So teachers and parents can introduce these fables to their children without a moral. And why I'm insisting on not talking about moral is important, and I'm going to discuss about it. So when we talk about moral, what we are doing? We are not giving children space to think on their own.
Okay.
At this stage, we want learners to interpret the actions of different characters and use their own judgment. So if I tell them that this thing was wrong or this thing was right, I'm not letting the child to think for himself. I'm not letting him or her think. And that is wrong. That is not advisable by educators. That's not advised by the educators. So what we can do, we can give them open-ended questions that give more space, more scope for making their own interpretation. We can ask who or what did they like the most and why.
Okay.
Here why is very important, because when we use why, it means we are asking them to think about their answer.
And
Why
give them their perspective.
Yeah, that why did they pick a character or an incident, because now they have to think on their own. They have to think about the story. They have to think what they like or what they dislike. Another question is, what would you have done if you were this or that character, or if you were in this or that situation? Because that's a very interesting part, because we often think about if I were you, I would have done this thing in this way or that way. But when we try to put ourselves into the place of other, we try to think of situation from our perspective,
right,
and what we would have done, we would have said, and that's very important and interesting, and that's a very common human habit as well, to give advice to others that you should have done so, you should do this, do that, right?
Absolutely.
So give them time to think, give them time to explain things from their perspective, instead of telling them that this thing is right and this thing is wrong, and that you should not do so, and you should do this, follow that. Just avoid these things at this stage.
But a standard 2 student might not always give a logical answer. Will that be okay for the
That's
educator?
important for language, right? That's how we allow space for creativity, right? Because there are stories that have no logical reason, we have nonsense rhymes as well in language. So when we it's important to give them space, to provide them an environment where they feel safe enough to express their opinion. And at this stage, we want them to use language to communicate their thoughts, to express themselves. So it's better to encourage them to speak what they want, to write what they want, instead of expecting a fixed answer from them, because that's going to do them more harm than anything else.
Makes total sense now.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I hope our parents and teachers won't pressurize their students and children to follow a particular moral or particular character's behavior from a story. Let them think on their own.
Absolutely. Now, after listening to you, I'm sure they're going to follow that.
I hope so. And like we discussed, what kind of questions one must ask. There are also questions that one must avoid. Why was someone wrong, or why was someone right? When I'm saying that someone was wrong or someone was right, I'm already putting a label there. And we don't want to label characters or situations according to an adult's perspective.
Okay.
Because for children, the world is not so black and white, right? They don't want to go into the essence of the story just for the sake of it. They want to enjoy. Maybe for them, the character which is more notorious for us, which looks more notorious to us, may be the hero of the story. For them, may look like a hero, right?
So these points are for the teachers and parents to take care of.
Yes.
Okay.
So let your students enjoy the story, let them have fun with the story, and avoid asking what is the moral of the story.
Okay. Spirit of competition.
Right. So as we saw in our story, that they both got into a competition, and the question that we left earlier was, who won the battle? Right. So it was the son who won the competition, but he did not use his win to mock the wind or make fun of the wind. Okay. And that is very important. So children, when you are into a competition or some sort of friendly bit, don't try to make fun of your friends. Try to take in a fun way, try to enjoy the competition, the game, or whatever thing you have, because when we compete, we often end up hurting our relationships with others. We often end up impacting our relationship with others when we take it in a negative way, right? If you lose or if you win the game, it doesn't matter. What matters is enjoy the game, enjoy the competition. And this lesson is a good example of healthy competition. It's mentioned that the sun did not use his wind to belittle the wind, or he didn't make the fun of the wind. And why it is important, because as adults we also encourage our children to be competitive, right? We also promote children to be competitive. There is always some sort of competition. So use that competitiveness to strengthen the child, instead of telling them that you are supposed to get this much marks, you are supposed to score this much, get that grade, this grade. Avoid that. Use that competition to make them feel good about themselves, right? That I can do this thing, I'm good at this thing, or I'm good at that thing, and I should pay more attention to this aspect or this thing or that thing. In that way, competition can be used to encourage the students to do better.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for the great tips. These were for students, for parents, and even for the teachers. So this was a wonderful session. I learned a lot about it from it, and I'm sure you too must have enjoyed the entire session and the poem, specifically The Wind and the Sun. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you to all the students as well. Well, keep on watching NCERT's online resource material. This English session was definitely interesting, and we're coming back with a maths class. Yes, where we are going to learn numbers from 21 to 50. Well, this is going to be fun again. So stay with us. Don't go anywhere. We're coming back very, very soon. Namaste.